What is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the North End Podcast, episode 25, our 2021 Driussi episode. Also, our Steve Kerr Spurs episode, second time on the Spurs. He was number 4 the first time. My name is Zach Graham, your host here on the North End Podcast, joined, as always, by my good buddy, on record as my best friend. It's Ian Michaud, a.k.a. E, a.k.a. Let E. James, a.k.a. Sebastian Drew Easy, a.k.a. Eastradamus, a.k.a. Pap E. O'Daniel, a.k.a. Chili Willie. E, it has been a very busy week in the Austin FC universe since we last convened a week ago. And it's been a busy week for you and I. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling like it's another beautiful day to be an Austin FC fan and supporter. And we have much to discuss, lots to get into. Looking forward to it as always, sharing our thoughts. Personally, I'm doing well. It's beautiful out. Feels like a weird time warp every time I'm down here in Texas and it's the middle of January and it's 85 degrees.
Shorts and T-shirts. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. You don't suffer from the cedar, right? Like no. I'm on the other end of the spectrum.
Yes.
So I have been watching out the window with a tear running down my face at all this beautiful weather that's just passing me by, because if I go outside, I might die. So we'll dispense, I guess, of the rest of the pleasantries here and go ahead and get into it, because there is a lot to talk about, and I think there may be enough to talk about both on the Austin FC side of things and the MLS side of things in terms of other big signings around the league, trades, transfers, and the like. We're never short on nonsense that we can bring to the podcast, but I think for the sake of time, we may be jettisoning that, our typical off-season nonsense segment at the end of the pod to next week and get back on that horse on the next episode. So let's go ahead and dive in to the Austin FC news, roster moves, etc. And we'll just start with the most recent news, at least for the first team, and that is that we have a trade. Mm-hmm. And I don't think any of us really expected it to be a trade. We got some smoke from Anthony Precourt late last night. And what was really interesting, you and I were discussing this over text last night, what was really interesting to us about this particular smoke post was that our normal sources, whether it's like at the MLS level, your Tom Bogerts, your Extra Time, all those guys.
Yep.
Or our more local sources, your, Hernan and the greater We Are Austin TV crew, sometimes Moon Tower and Texas Ring of Fire, like anybody else who's producing content and in tune with the rumblings, the rumors, was at a loss. Like, maybe it could be another center back, but like everybody was kind of on pins and needles all the way up through this morning, wondering who it could be. And then, like, when the announcement was, or I guess we didn't have, like, a specific time for the announcement, but in the Los Verde Slack, our buddy Phil West was in there. Again, Phil West of The Striker. If you haven't subscribed to The Striker, we very much encourage you to do so. He was in the Los Verde Slack saying that, I don't know if there's, like, an official NDA on the information, but he was like 10:30 a.m. Central is the time. And that was indeed the time when both the club and the Striker released press releases and or articles about Austin's acquisition, and that is none other than Adam Lundqvist. And I may be mispronouncing that. I guess I could pull up the official press release.
No, you got that
here.
Right. That one was right. That one's not.
So check this out. Here's the pronunciation. They did include the guide. It is Lundqvist. Lundqvist.
Wow. All right.
I'll shoot it over to you. Maybe you can give it a try after the episode, but we'll just call him Adam. Lundqvist is a left back, and he was acquired from the Houston Dynamo. So a lot of business between the in-state rivals over the last year. And I guess really since we began our journey as a club, because we've got Jeremiah, the in-stadium announcer, was initially with the Dynamo, or at least before coming to Austin. He was working there in Houston. I believe Davey Arnaud, our assistant, our head assistant coach, I believe he came from one of the previous Houston staffs to come join Josh Wolf in Austin. Obviously, Maxi Urruti coming over last year from Houston. And then the super draft pick that was traded to Austin that became CJ Faudre did learn on his interview with Texas Ring of Fire and our buddy RB22. It is Faudre, not Faudry. So I'm training myself in the new pronunciations as best as I can, and I know you will follow suit. Long-winded talk here about the trade, but I guess we'll get into the details here. Austin FC announced that the club agreed to a trade with Houston Dynamo FC. Obviously, Austin FC acquired Adam Lundqvist. Jeez, that's going to take a while for me. It probably should. It's going to take longer than it should. Houston, in return, received $300,000 in GAM for this season and $200,000 in GAM for next season. Lundqvist, that's terrible. He joined Houston. Lundqvist. Yeah. So it's here. I'm gonna slack it to you right now. Here's the pronunciation.
I feel like that V is tripping you up.
Yeah, the KV in the middle. You see it now?
Yeah, that's tripping you up. You just gotta I think you gotta just roll that.
Lundqvist.
Lundqvist.
I like yours better. Oh, I don't know if either of us are correct. He's been with, or was with, Houston, I should say, for a long time. 5 seasons. Joined them in 2018. 121 appearances with 111 starts for the Dynamo. 12 assists. No MLS goals, though, in his 5 seasons with Houston. And he came to Houston from a familiar club, Elfsborg, out there in Sweden. So obviously the same club as one of our other acquisitions that we really kind of, I think we talked about Leo Väisänen last time as almost him already being on the team. But we'll talk, he was officially added, and we'll talk about him shortly. But yeah, so 2 Elfsborg guys in the same week, or ex-Elfsborg players. And when he was there in Sweden, had 3 goals and 18 assists in 145 appearances, winning the Swedish Cup in 2014. Lundqvist is 28 years old, and again, a 5'9" left back. He's represented the Swedish senior men's national team in 2 international friendlies. That was all the way back in 2016. So unlike Väisänen, who is seemingly a regular on the Finnish team, Lundqvist just, kind of a filler type of a guy, but still a player with international apps. He did get an assist in a 3-0 victory over Väisänen's Finland back in 2016. Though he is a Swedish citizen, Lundqvist holds a U.S. green card and therefore will not occupy an international slot on the Austin FC roster. So purely a senior roster spot taken up by our new left back, and joining now a kind of a crowded left back position all of a sudden with Lundqvist there, and obviously John Gallagher and Zan Kolmanic, who we can talk about later, looking healthy apparently, which is good, obviously, and Charlie Asensio still on the roster, albeit in a supplemental spot. So after just about 10 minutes of me blathering about our new acquisition, what are your thoughts here? Again, we are about 3 or 4 hours removed now recording this episode from when that news broke this morning.
I mean, congrats to him for the promotion from the Dynamo to Austin FC.
Yeah, somebody said he's a rescue.
They had him out before the game in a little little rescue dog that
Austin Pets Live. Rescue a Dynamo player.
That's good. I want to touch on, in your ramblings, I was picking up things that I wanted to speak on a bit, and I mean it seems nice that we have good rapport with these other Texas squads.
Yeah, sure.
As you know, in other professional sports here, I mean, there's an unwritten Lakers tax. You know,
Yes.
when you're trying to trade with the Lakers, they got to pay more.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a Steelers guy. I don't think they would ever get a deal done with the likes of the Ravens or another team in that division. So, I mean, I think that's a good thing that we've been working with these teams and we have a good rapport with them.
Yeah. No trade blockades there.
Yeah. Houston really stacking that game up.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see what they do with that. Also, you did mention it, a somewhat crowded left side there now.
Mm-hmm.
And Lundqvist, obviously, another MLS vet, guy with a lot of minutes. What do you have? 31 games last year, 30 started.
Yeah, I think second on the Dynamo in minutes last year.
I mean, he averaged 84 minutes a game.
Yeah.
So we like that. Again, we've been asking for positional depth at this point. I don't know if does he have any utility where we can kind of move him around, or that's just where he's going to be?
It seems so. I was looking at his transfer market page, his FB ref page. It does seem like he's pretty much left back only.
Okay.
I mean, we know how – what's that?
Is he left-footed?
Yes.
Okay.
And so we know how important fullbacks are in Coach Wolf's system. So I guess my thought, and certainly this isn't an original thought by any means because we know about the utility that John Gallagher brings, but we've seen John Gallagher play on the right. So maybe he becomes kind of, again, like we bring that utility back in terms of just swapping sides for Gallagher on the back wherever he's needed.
Absolutely. So that doesn't necessarily mean that Lundqvist has to be that versatile, because that kind of unlocks Johnny G's versatility, right, and allows him to move a bit more around the field. A healthy Zani, as we saw from some footage there, and your wonderful Pepe Silvia connect the strings. Pointing these guys out, trying to get some more secrets going. Man, happy to see Zani healthy, first of all, for sure.
Yes.
Because he does add that very very important dynamic to that left side of the field with his crossing. Yeah,
I was going to say, especially in the attack, right?
Yes. So I don't know if this is an attribute of Lundqvist's game where he has a nice long ball. He's racked up a couple assists here, nothing too extraordinary.
Right. Well, it's hard to rack up assists when your other teammates can't score.
True. I mean, he had 5 last year.
He certainly was not a bad player.
Yeah, that's not insignificant by any means. Again, we've been calling for help on that back line, and I think that you hit the nail on the head there with the idea that you said that wasn't yours about moving John around. So you can take credit for that one, and I'll jump on board with that. And man, Claudio, still, we're making moves, we're doing things, we're getting shit done, baby.
Yeah, and I think that, like I mentioned in one of our tweets this morning, that $500K in GAM feels like the amount you pay in a trade for a starting level player. Mm-hmm. Looking at his transfer market, Lundqvist is valued at $1 million, which is still – so he came to Houston from Elfsborg, valued at $1 million. He is still at $1 million. So, like, his value is still at its all-time high. So I would say this guy, 28 years old, is still in his prime. And, again, it just kind of highlights the quality of player that, some of these more global soccer outlets, view him as. And that is, I think, at least a slightly above average asset there, MLS-wise, at left back.
I agree.
I think – go ahead.
I was just going to say that it's looking like the talent on that back line is really coming together. Mm-hmm. But the thing that I'm most interested in with that back line is who is our leader back there, who is trying to fill the large shoes of a now departed Ruben, and who's going to be able to keep the cohesion back there, keep us solid. It looks like we're getting some talented dudes to add to that, rotation. But the most important thing back there is going to be our communication. How we're dealing with halftime adjustments, how we're dealing with different teams attacking us. So I'm hoping that can work out. Obviously, he's got the MLS experience that we're looking for. And it was like you said, it was a weird trade. It wasn't the name we were expecting. It was a weird name.
Right.
It just came out of left field. So I'm looking forward to it for sure. But again, it's the leadership role back there. Who's gonna take control of that and have the voice for those boys.
Yeah, and as one of the older players, certainly at the position. I mean, you look at Charlie Asensio, Zon Kolmanic, and even like John Gallagher is not a geezer by any means. So Lundqvist is. Yeah,
that makes us triple geezer.
Yeah, shit. I mean, adding a 28-year-old vet of both the Swedish league, Swedish champion, right? Mm-hmm. And albeit on one of the lesser teams over the last 5 years, I don't believe any playoff appearances in that time for Houston. So hopefully, we'll knock on wood. In a couple months, or not a couple months, later this year, we'll be saying Adam Lundqvist, welcome to the playoffs in the MLS for the first time.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously that was there was a lot of hullabaloo around that between last night and this morning, and I think at the end of the day we'll be able to look back mid-season, certainly after the season, and judge this more fairly. But you and I lean towards being fans of Claudio Reyna and his business, and I think this is another piece of good business. I guess we could talk a little bit more about Leo Väisänen, right? The signing was made official literally, I think, 2 hours after we finished recording last week's episode. And that's just how it goes. I saw the Moon Tower guys last night. They finished recording this week's episode of their podcast an hour before Precourt tweeted the smoke. So I think no matter what night any of us record on, we will get hit by these green smoke at least once per season, I think is kind of the quota, right? But just to kind of get some closure on the Väisänen situation, he's not in the country yet, I believe, still waiting on his visa. He also posted a video, or sent a little video clip to the media team to post on his behalf, saying, can't wait to get there, see you guys soon. And he was outside in what looked like, Finland, super cold, snowy. He's got a big old jacket on. But the fact that he was outside, it almost made it look like he was about to be on his way.
Okay.
So I don't have any concrete news to report on when Väisänen will be here. Obviously, training started yesterday after players reported on Friday. So obviously the quicker Leo can get here, the better.
Absolutely.
But we do, I think both of us agree that he will be here well before the season starts. And, but I guess we're just, we'll start getting a little bit more tight about that situation if we don't see him come February 1st or something
for sure.
That. And then what was interesting was, Fabrizio Romano, one of, probably the premier soccer reporter globally in terms of reporting huge deals and transfers, trades, all that stuff. He was the one last Tuesday night who confirmed that Väisänen was coming to Austin. He gave us the patented, the here we go, and that's a classic. But just wanted to note, Fabrizio Romano was confirming We Are Austin TV's initial report, and he did not credit them in his tweet. So we will do so now. I know, that doesn't do much, but we wanted to do our part
it's on the record
to give correct attribution here.
That's right. We are on the record now.
Yeah, to our buddies over there at We Are Austin TV. And then also credit Derek Ensign, who is I think Derek and you and I have not met Derek, but I do recognize the name from Los Verde Slag. I believe he's very heavily involved with LV.
Yes.
He uncovered a list of the most expensive transfer fees in MLS history, and center back wise, Leo Väisänen slots in as the 6th most expensive transfer fee, $1.8 million.
Wow.
So good find there by Derek. And I
Great.
think, again, that just shows you the type of signing this is. And, I guess the ceiling that a player like Leo Väisänen brings at age 25.
Absolutely.
Then we had, with Leo in, meant Ruben officially out. And I think, like, it's all good now. Like,
Yeah.
we saw him post on the press release that the club issued, and I want to pull this up here so I don't, get any of this wrong. We had speculated, or there had been speculation that the issue with Ruben was some sort of family thing and
Yeah.
wanting to go back home. And his quote in the press release confirmed this. He said, "Though it's difficult to say goodbye to Austin FC, as a parent of a child who requires special care, returning to Lillestrøm and Norway is what's best for me and my family at this time. I will always have fantastic memories and friendships from the year that I spent in Austin. And I want to thank the fan base for their incredible support throughout the season. It's a wonderful community and a great club with a bright future." So I think, again, we've talked about Ruben, his potential departure. Last week we kind of knew it was 99.5% of the way done, and now it's official. So one more hat tip to Ruben Gabrielsen. We said some words about him last week, and we don't have to say it again here. We love Ruben. We'll be following him from afar. We appreciate what he did for the club, and best of luck to him and his family. Then we have another transfer,
Yes,
which
we do.
was the fact that the word transfer and not loan was the best part of this.
Indeed.
Because we and everybody else have been wondering, what were we going to do with the fourth designated player on the roster, Tomas Pochettino. Obviously, Poch spent year one with Austin FC, then last year with River Plate in Argentina. But River Plate, who's playing in Austin tonight in that big friendly, I believe against Monterrey, I think is the other team that's there. Yeah, and it looks like it's going to be, I think you and I won't be attending that friendly match, but it does look like it might be a full house based on the ticket prices, or at least close to, which I think you would expect. Like, both of those clubs in their respective countries have huge fan bases. They also have huge fan bases here in the United States. So, yeah, I know there's a couple Austin fans also going out to that one. So everybody enjoy that game, and hopefully it's a good match for everybody to take in there at Q2 to kick off 2023's run of matches there at our home stadium. But back to Pochettino, we kind of knew that the club was working on something. We had to buy him down, get him out on a loan, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were some rumblings that there was a couple Brazilian sides interested. And then the club posted on Friday that Pochettino, or that the club had reached an agreement with Fortaleza in Brazil for the transfer of midfielder Tomas Pochettino, not a loan. So goodbye, Poch.
Yes.
We won't miss you. And getting him off the books. I believe it's actually an 80-20 split, where Fortaleza is taking on 80% of his salary. We're still on the hook for 20. But as you shrug your shoulders, I agree. Yeah. It's great business. I mean, it's great. It's a great salvage of some poor business.
Yes.
And that's a good thing to see, right? The clubs, we're fixing the swing and a miss that we took on one of our season one DPs.
Absolutely. And a guy who really just didn't fit our culture, really just didn't fit the community that the team was building and growing, and someone who we just really wanted to get away from the team.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that says everything about Tomas's time in Austin. He does not get the Ruben goodbye, salute by no means. But, wish him well. He clearly has talent. He clearly has skill. But, yeah, we're moving on from that. And I am quite thrilled at an 80-20 split, because keeping him around, loaning him out, sunken cost fallacy.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily, having him be loaned out and just dealing with like that. It's who can we now get in this spot that we have.
Right.
So, yes, good business indeed.
So, with Lundqvist in, Väisänen in, Pochettino out, Gabrielson out, looking at the roster, I believe, and I guess we can bring this up and discuss it just a little bit.
Okay.
I think it was Friday last week when I was perusing the roster page on the team's website, for the, 187th time this offseason of being on that page, but noticed that Gyasi Zardes was listed as a designated player, and really jumped the gun, put the siren emojis out there, tagged a couple of people like, yo, look at what is going on here. Luckily, our buddy Jeremiah Bentley over there at Moon Tower was on it right from the rip, was like, hey, I think this is just the MLS database and all of the team sites pulling from that unupdated database, which is the case. And what had really thrown me off is the club had already removed Gabrielson and Pochettino from the roster page.
Yep.
So I was like, well, this is updated, right?
Yeah, of course.
And so going back to look at it this morning to kind of look at where we stand with senior spots, supplemental spots, et cetera, because Coach Wolf, in his press conference yesterday, came right out and said it. We're still in the market for another center back. So how many spots do we have to be able to do that? And I noticed DP tag now gone from Gyasi Zardes, so that's accurate. But we know that Hector Jimenez on his new contract will occupy a supplemental spot. He is still listed as a senior roster member. So the roster not all the way accurate. So anything we talk about here could be inaccurate, but we're trying to go off what the club is providing us. They also list Hector Jimenez as a midfielder. I don't think he's played anything but right or left back for us in his 2 seasons. So let's get with it. MLS/Austin FC. The roster page has to be accurate.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's definitely a big one. I mean, they got Lundqvist up there already. Mm-hmm. He's on board. So yeah, I don't know that. You definitely got excited though.
Yeah, I mean, it was what is are we really buying down Alex Ring? What is you know that I am so excited to put the tinfoil hat on.
Yeah, we were ready to break news, baby. We were ready to break news.
So no news breaking to be done here, but I think a good conversation to have. Obviously, we know we've been through before the senior roster spots, the 10 supplemental spots, and the various restrictions on those. Don't feel bad, E, because I don't remember what the restrictions on those spots were either. So I pulled up our handy-dandy guide here, and if we need to reference it, we can. It looks like we've got 19 senior roster spots occupied right now. So we do have that one spot open for a potential center back. But then we've that's including Rodney Redis. And there's been rumors about Club Olympia back in Paraguay being interested in getting him either on a loan or or something, right? Acquiring the services of Lord Redis, which would be great. Yeah. So if there's any legs to that rumor, and we know from the practice footage, Rodney Redis is here in Austin. He's in training as of yesterday, so nothing imminent there. But if he was moved, that would open up that second senior roster spot. Supplemental spots, if we move Hector Jimenez from the senior spot that the roster page currently says he is occupying, we move him into one of those supplemental spots. And here's where I will reference this handy-dandy supplemental roster guide on MLSsoccer.com. I believe – so, okay, before we assign Hector to a supplemental spot, we have 7 of the 10 filled. So there's 8 filled, but we don't know which supplemental spot he's going to take. There is the 21 to 24 range, the 25 to 28 range, and the 29 to 30 range, with which, before we assign Jimenez to one of those spots, we have one spot open in each category, okay? I think he's going to take a spot in the 21 to 24 range because I would imagine he is on, again, Hector, one of the, if not now, the oldest by age player on the team. Senior minimum salary is $84,000, while reserve minimum salary is $65,500. I imagine we're paying Hector at least the minimum at $84K. So I think he's probably going to take that 21 to 24. The other player we know is going to take one of those supplemental spots is CJ Faudre.
Nice.
And he can be in either that 21 to 24, where our other two Generation Adidas players are, Kip Keller and Danny Pereira, or slots 25 to 28, where you can also put Generation Adidas players. But I believe they have to be earning that reserve minimum salary. There's also a thing called a homegrown player subsidy, which I have not gotten into yet.
Mackenzie Gaines.
Right, there you go. And then that 29 to 30 spot must be filled with homegrown players earning the reserve minimum salary or earning more than the reserve minimum salary subject to that homegrown player subsidy, which is a mystery to us. The only player in that 29 to 30 spot is Owen Wolf because he has that homegrown designation. So I think we probably have, again, Jimenez in that 21 to 24 spot, Faudre in that 25 to 28 spot, which would only leave us one supplemental spot, and that would be for a homegrown. We have guys like Alfonso Ocampo-Chavez, Damian Loss. Those guys have homegrown tags, but the roster page says that AOC is in a 21 to 24 spot and Loss is in a 25 to 28 spot. So it would appear, or I guess I should say, I'm not surprised if we do go into the season with that 29 to 30 spot open and filling the other two with Jimenez and Faudre. And I don't know if you can shift those around because we have Valentin Noel, right? The 20th overall pick.
Correct.
Who neither of us, I think, are surprised if he gets a deal with the first team, given how we went out and traded for him instead of letting him fall. But I guess, we'll just have to see how that shakes out. And clearly, the club knows what they can do. Claudio knows what they can and can't do. And so I think we'll just let them figure that out, and we can report back if there's any changes. But still, got to be on the lookout, right, for that, at least one senior roster spot that's open, and there is a potential to add another supplemental spot. We should see that Faudre contract come through at some point soon. So any thoughts on the roster construction there?
Nope. You done good.
Well, let's go ahead and move on to some of the information that came out from the both in the print news, your Phil Wests and the like at the Striker. Great article from our buddy Phil about the first day of training yesterday. We also had I think it's Tyler Feldman over there at K-View. Tyler Feldman, at Tyler Feldman TV on Twitter, the sports reporter over there at K-View, released that practice footage where yours truly went through frame by frame and tried to figure out any tidbits that we could get from that. And I think getting ahead of myself a little bit here, the night before training, so Sunday night, the club released a video at 9 p.m., 8 or 9 p.m., which is an odd time. Clearly, we're getting out ahead of the media availability first day of training that was coming the next day because Sebastian Driussi has taken the number 10. And in turn, Emiliano Rigoni has dropped a 7. He is now wearing the number 7. Of course, last season came in wearing 77. And then we also got evidence that Gyasi Zardes wearing the number 9, so taking over the number 9 from Danny Hosen. Just kind of another, I think, implication to the idea that Gyasi Zardes will be the starting striker for this team on opening day. Waiting on almost all of the other new numbers, although we were able to spot kind of in the distance, and then confirmed on the second, the club put out a practice highlight video today. Matt Bersano, backup goalkeeper, going to be wearing number 20. So taking over the 20 from Jared Stroud. Jared Stroud, who we will see in about 6 weeks at Q2 Stadium.
As we get ever closer.
So let's break down some of these pictures here that we posted. Because the first one, and I just slacked the thread to you if you want to also, I know I sent these pictures to you last night, but the first one was you got a clip
CJ.
of this the team in the red pennies over there, and there is a giant standing over there. It's all relative, right? Soccer giant, like I think this guy's about your size, maybe a little bit shorter, but standing next to all those other soccer players, CJ Fodre is a big boy. And like, look, Kip Keller's over there.
That's Kip, right?
Yeah. Kip. And he's like not towering, but a couple inches taller than Kip Keller, who is also himself a big guy.
Yeah.
That was good to see.
They're still rocking pennies nowadays. What's up with that?
Yeah. So I was trying to decipher last night what the drill was that they were doing with, because there's like 3 or 4 teams, and then there's 2 guys running around with yellow pennies on.
Okay.
And again, those Moon Tower soccer guys, in their infinite wisdom, Landon Cotham knows apparently what this drill was, and it's called always offense. And so those guys in the yellow pennies are, as it sounds, always on offense. And there's 2 other teams on the field, and they try to make as many passes. And apparently in this drill, Landon said they do it in warm-ups too, where it's all about passing. How many passes can you get before you turn it over? They had little, mini goals set up here, so I think they were trying to score. But so it's an interesting drill. Like, I was trying to decipher it with my basketball mind last night and couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's not a ton of footage, even in Tyler Feldman's kind of extended clips that he put out there. But yeah, so that's what was going on here in this drill with all those different color pennies. Yeah, and again, we're I think you and I are also used to having like reversible practice jerseys where you don't need pennies, and so we mentioned this earlier. Zan Kolmanic was out there running around, no brace on his knee. You would imagine if he's taking part in these, full speed drills that there's no restrictions on him. So whatever was bothering his knee and had him on crutches with his knee wrapped in the playoffs last season, clearly not an issue right now, and clearly not the rumored ACL tear that we have been, kind of fearing over the last couple months.
Yeah.
So that was good. Again, we saw that Bersano number there. We saw what is now Eric Lopez. We'll talk about him in a minute. That fourth goalkeeper that's in training, he was there. And it does look like there's a couple academy kids out there. You and I not familiar with the academy, like putting the faces to the names, really.
Yeah. Of course.
And so I think there is a couple academy guys out there training with the first team. We saw Rigoni put the ball in the net. That was nice.
Small net.
I really hope that we don't have to ever make that joke again. Right? Like that shit we say about Rodney Redis.
Yeah. I'm confident that we will not have to.
I agree.
Joke again. What you put him at, you said around 10?
That's what Claudio said. We expect 10 from him as a DP. And I think he can, right? Like we've seen him at his past stops be a guy that's a very capable scorer. And obviously we know about his service from last year. Like nobody got on the end of it. We know he's going to have a ton of assists this year based on what he did in his limited time last season. We did see Sofian Jeffel out there in multiple clips, so good to see him on the field. Phil West did report that all 4 of the draft picks are present. So you've got Fodre out there, you've got Valentin Noel, Jackson Valti, and Salvatore Mazzaferro. On Tyler Feldman's video, we were only able to find Valentin Noel. I can tell you what I'm about to post from the club's video after we finish recording this episode, did find Salvatore Mazzaferro out there and Jackson Valti as well. So we've seen all 4 rookies. They are indeed out there. Phil West, not a liar. And we've been able to see their face in some, the mint training tops. Charlie Asensio also out there. And, of course, Rodney Redis. So, yeah, there's just, especially you and I, there's no way to quench our Verde thirst. You can only kind of hope to contain it and then kind of keep it on the sidelines until we're wanting for more. So,
I mean, we're going with a full camp here.
Yes.
Oh.
Also today, which will be the video today, You got Coach Wolf talking in Spanish to Rigoni.
Whoa!
You've got Stuver trying to get Rigoni to speak English. Like, but it's just like things that you want to see on a team with guys who all don't, speak the same language.
I definitely want to see Coach Wolf speak Spanish.
Yeah, he wasn't bad. He wasn't bad in the
isn't his partner?
seconds.
Is his partner?
I think Hispanic. I don't know the nationality, but I believe his wife is Hispanic. Yeah.
Okay.
Of course, the mother wolf there.
She wolf.
Yeah. So another thing announced between last episode and this episode, we've got a preseason schedule, and I can tell you, I'm not super excited for it because our first match. The club is actually going to be leaving Austin very soon and go out to Florida to kind of have almost like a spring training down there in Florida. The club will spend the club will spend 6 days at the IMG Academy out there in Bradenton, Florida, which will culminate in a match against the defending Eastern Conference champion Philadelphia Union. That will be on Saturday, January 21st. So again, both of us disappointed that Philly not on the schedule this season. So if it's any consolation, we get to see them in the preseason, but we won't get to see them. The club will, because this is going to be close to the public and not streamed. So we'll have to rely on, I guess, any reporters that can get in there or whatever the club will tell us about that matchup. I'm bummed that we don't get to see. My ass will watch a stream of us scrimmaging Philly.
Absolutely.
After that match, the club will then go to Orlando and train there for 5 days in Clearwater, Florida. Or no, they will be training in Orlando. And then after those 5 days of training on Friday, January 27th, we'll take on FC Cincinnati in Clearwater, Florida. Of course, that one also closed to the public. If anybody was thinking about going out to Florida or lives in Florida, right, and wanted to try to catch those matches, won't be able to unless there's some random Verde hill out there, which is where you should be able to catch the final 2 preseason games here in Austin, Saturday, February 4th, Saturday, February 11th, El Paso Locomotive, Louisville City, respectively. Imagine those games kick off 9, 10, 10:30 in the morning. And so, I think you and I planning to, at least for one of those, go out there, show our face, kind of, take our binoculars out there and try to see the guys from afar, obviously taking on 2 USL sides there at home. And February 11th, the last date on the schedule here, that is 2 weeks but until the opener. So maybe we get some sort of surprise friendly announcement, for that weekend before the season starts.
Yep.
And we see, maybe a Liga MX side come in there, whatever. You and I would not be able to attend that match. So if there is that match, there is no match, I'm making it up. But if something is announced that weekend, since you and I will both be out of town, maybe we can do a little preseason ticket giveaway. Who knows? So that would be a benefit for sure. If the club was able to add kind of a secret match there, leading up to the regular season opener. We did, and again, we are over 40 minutes here on episode 25, still talking Austin FC. And we've got more to talk about this time on the Austin FC 2 side of things. We did begin to get our next pro news rolling in. So let me find where did
Young boy.
Okay, so first we can talk about staff. Last week, Austin FC 2 announced the addition of Dennis Sanchez and Jason Grubb to its coaching staff ahead of its inaugural MLS Next Pro season. Both Sanchez and Grubb will work as assistant coaches under Austin FC 2 head coach Brett Utley. So Sanchez arrives in Austin after spending last season as the first assistant coach of the Charleston Battery in the USL Championship. That's where Charlie Asensio was loaned to last season. And Grubb joins Austin FC 2, having worked most recently as the Dynamo FC's head of academy goalkeeping and Houston Dynamo 2 goalkeeping coach. He was also the goalkeeping coach for the U20 U.S. men's youth national team since 2021 and helped the program win the CONCACAF U20 championship last year. So it's not just like we're not just pulling guys off the street here, right? Like
facts.
It seems like everything is being built with intent, which is good. And that seems like kind of the highest standard that we can expect here. Just bear with me a moment as I try to find the next pro signings. And as I'm doing that, we can go ahead and start talking about the first one, which was Czech Toure. You know, a name that we've discussed for a little over a month here. We were expecting that announcement around Christmas time, and it did come last Thursday as a trio of Austin FC2 signings were announced. Czech Toure, again, that 21-year-old winger. We had talked about him playing his last few matches for PSV's second team as a fullback.
Yep.
And I believe, I'm pulling it up right now, I believe we announced Czech Toure as a fullback? Yeah. So here's a fucking name for you, man. Midfielder, Bobasi Brahanga? I do love that first name.
Bobasi is a good first name.
Winger, David Rodriguez. I don't know if it's David or David Rodriguez, because he is coming. Rodriguez is coming to us from a Liga MX club. But again, Toure officially here. Going to play fullback for Austin FC2. We'll just call him Bobasi for now until somebody gives me a better pronunciation. He is 21 years old. Began his professional career with Vipers SC. That's in his native Uganda. He was the FUFA Male Player of the Year award, which I believe is the football or Federation of Ugandan Football Associations or something. Yeah. I know the U is Uganda, and that's FUFA. Pretty fun to say. And so, I mean, Male Player of the Year award in Uganda is pretty good, especially for a young guy like that. He then moved in 2021 to the Czech club MFK Vyškov. That was in August 2022. And Bobasi made 11 appearances for the Ugandan senior men's national team, including 6 in the 2022 FIFA World Cup qualifiers. He joins Austin FC2 on a season-long loan with a purchase option. That is the exact same way that David, I'm going to say David Rodriguez, joins us from Atlético San Luis in Liga MX, where he joined San Luis in 2020, has since made 9 Liga MX appearances with the club. Initially made his professional debut at age 16 for North Texas SC, making 19 appearances as the team won the USL League One regular season and playoffs in 2019.
Is it still a team?
North Texas SC?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I don't know.
Huh.
We're not super up on our USL teams, especially the ones that aren't like either playing Austin FC or like we know San Antonio won the league last year. I believe El Paso was also extremely competitive in that league. And it says USL League One, which I think is a step below USL Championship. So maybe they still exist, but they're in, not quite Wrexham level down there, but like, and then this morning, we did have the 4th official Austin FC2 signing, which again, we kind of mentioned earlier, that was the mystery 4th keeper at training yesterday. It's Eric Lopez, who comes to Austin FC2 on a 1-year deal with a club option for next season. Again, he's participating with the first team during the preseason here. He's a native of Westminster, California, is a product of the Galaxy Academy, began his professional career at age 15, becoming at the time, the youngest player ever to sign a professional USL contract when he joined Galaxy 2 in 2014. He made 65 appearances for Galaxy 2, including 21 last season, kept 5 clean sheets and made 68 saves last season. He's 6'2", former U.S. men's youth national team player. He was the youngest member of the U17 roster, which included Christian Pulisic and Tyler Adams at the 2015 U17 World Cup in Chile. He made a total of 14 youth international appearances at various age levels. So the current Austin FC roster, Eric Lopez in goal, Czech Toure on the back line, Bobasi in the middle is a name that is just fitting to just be one name. Bobasi.
Yes, I'm with that.
And then up front, David Rodriguez. So obviously the Austin FC2 roster will continue to be built out. And until we have some games to judge them on, all good business.
Absolutely.
So, any takes on all the Austin FC2 news?
Sounds like that keeper has, quite an extensive history here.
Yeah.
Playing professional soccer. So that's good news. I know pre-pod we speculated. You're using a lot of good words today, and you're making me want. Feels like you watched like a Knicks broadcast and were listening to Clyde. You said you were perusing.
Yeah.
Hubbubaloo, did you say?
Yeah, hullabaloo.
So I'm going to use pontificate. We were pontificating pre-pod. So that's also alliteration.
Boom. We love alliteration on the pod.
Triple. What that meant for loss. And that's my question here. Like you said, haven't seen the guys. Obviously, with our information on Czech, sliding back from a winger position to a fullback. That's obviously, I don't know if it's concerning or he just showed flashes that he could, defend well and get up the sideline of the field. We're gonna say that these are all good business signings, and until we're proven otherwise, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see, like you just said, what happens with Damian Loss now. Because I think we know Matt Bersano is going to be the backup goalkeeper. He's on a senior spot. He made his first start last year for San Jose. But Damian Loss needs minutes. Like, we know the profile that he brought coming from Fulham's academy. And now he's got 0 minutes with Austin FC's first team, and now that we have a second team, but we're signing this goalkeeper that has a fairly nice profile for a next pro signing.
Absolutely.
I don't know if they're going to share that time, if we plan to loan Damian Loss out or not. Like, I don't know what's up with that. So that's something to watch, and a good point by you, or a good topic brought up by you on what's going to happen with Damian there.
Yeah, it's always good to have a little competition, and hopefully that brings out, a better form of Damian. I'm excited to see both those guys.
Yeah.
Anything that propels us forward, I'm all for.
Well, let's go ahead and get into the MLS news here, as we're, over 50 minutes. So we'll try to really rapid fire this MLS news and then close out the pod with a little bit more of a serious discussion.
It's going to get emotional, people.
Yeah. So on the other, for the other 28 MLS teams, some big news. MLS legend Gareth Bale has retired, which, a storied career, as we noted on Twitter, a career that included 0 wins and 1 loss at Q2 Stadium. And jokes aside, Gareth Bale could have only made 1 touch for LAFC, and as long as it was that last touch, it was all worth it for them. And jokes aside, like a seriously legendary career, even for soccer casuals like us, we know the impact that this man had on the game on a global scale. And so, honestly, congrats to him. I think both parties got exactly what they wanted out of that time. Was he got to golf a lot, stayed in shape for the World Cup, and then was able to join his country for the group stage. LAFC, obviously, one of the most important moments of their season, tying the game with the latest goal in MLS history. They get their supporter shield, they get their cup, and both sides, go their separate ways. And then it also, this benefits LAFC as well, because apparently with the way his contract was structured, he would have had to take a DP slot coming up this summer. And so now LAFC have a fucking DP slot open. And none of the signings that we have covered so far this season for them, most recently our buddy Stipe there, the U22 signing from Croatia, they're just going to.
They're
They
going to get
can
somebody.
add another DP, and they're going to.
They're going to get somebody. That's for damn sure.
So, and I guess we could also mention while we're talking LAFC, 2 moves for them since we last met. I don't believe we discussed Aaron Long's signing on the last episode. If we did, I apologize, but we can mention that now. LAFC did sign Aaron Long. Again, he's not the same player that he was back when he was MLS Defender of the Year. I believe that was 4 seasons ago. Obviously has rehabbed and returned from his torn Achilles, but again, hasn't returned to that same stellar form.
That's a tough
injury. That being said, the fact that LAFC is able to add him to this rotation on the back line, they just get even deeper. They also signed, and this is a good one. LAFC signed Eldin Jakupovic from Everton.
Oh my God.
And Jakupovic is a 38-year-old veteran. Last was a regular starter with Hull City in the Premier League. That was the 2016-17 season. So it's been a while since this guy was a regular starter, but since then has been the backup at Leicester City and Everton. And again, LAFC still waiting on Maxime Crépeau's broken leg to fully heal. So John McCarthy, the MLS Cup final MVP, was the only healthy keeper on the roster. So some very high-profile backup, or who knows maybe this guy comes in and starts over McCarthy.
Honestly, he could.
Yeah. You would think.
Yeah, he could. It's wild to watch them just stockpile these assets.
Yeah. So another big time, this is a serious MLS retirement. Sasha Kljestan also retired in the last week. He's 8th all-time in MLS assists. Obviously, the former U.S. international and was also former MLS Rookie of the Year. So congrats on a great career, Sasha Kljestan. And it appears Apple TV and MLS released their initial list of broadcasters for the upcoming Apple TV deal. Sasha Kljestan in there as a color commentator. So
there you go.
And
that's how you do it.
Yeah, and Austin FC note when it comes to that, no Adrian Healy, no Mike LaHood, but that list was just an initial list. They are not done announcing who all will make up the full broadcast roster for Apple TV. So hoping, fingers crossed, that we at least get Healy in there, and to see Mike LaHood in there as well would be just icing on the cake, I think, for Austin fans.
Totally agree.
DC United signed Polish international midfielder Mateusz Klich from Leeds. Will be a DP there for DC United. So you mentioned a few weeks ago you think DC is going to be an improved roster. Maybe when we get closer to the season, we do our Eastern and Western Conference previews, we'll talk more about their roster. But guys like Christian Benteke, they've added a couple other good players. Like you look at Tom Bogert, didn't quite have them in his top 5 MLS offseason so far, but did kind of give them an honorable mention. So Mateusz Klich joining there. Again, coming over from Leeds where he had 195 appearances and, was a fan favorite over there. So a good move, it seems like, for DC. We've talked a little bit about the newbies over the last couple months, St. Louis City. They did sign their first ever homegrown player. His name is Caden Glover. I believe he's 15 years old. It's a 5-year deal. He is a U.S. youth international, a striker, and made his next pro debut last season. So a little
14?
Yeah, I believe so.
Wow.
Yeah, and so there's interesting just kind of conversation I've heard about. I forget, it might have been Moon Tower, might have been Top Flight, might have been Extra Time. I was listening to some people smarter than me talk about soccer, and they were talking about how St. Louis was the original soccer city USA, just because of the list of players both on the men's and women's side that have come out of the St. Louis area. And I can't recall the list off the top of my head, but it was an impressive list, just what they rattled off on said podcast. And we have our own example, Kip Keller's from St. Louis. And so you look at this kid, right, Caden Glover, young boy getting a 5-year professional contract and already debuted in Next Pro. So just, I think ultimately, all of that to say this, having St. Louis in the league is going to be a big boost just for the popularity of soccer in general, especially there in the Midwest, having that MLS franchise finally, it seems, in St. Louis.
Absolutely. And apparently Ronaldo is a fan of the Midwest.
Yeah, hey, sure, you have to buy those discovery rights off SKC now.
No, that's great for the league.
Yep.
I was not aware of, St. Louis being a hub for professional soccer players,
Yep.
but bringing in a professional soccer team can only be good to raise that bar, and great for the league. And I'm excited for them. I'm excited for St. Louis. I'm excited to see him in the league. All good things coming out of there.
So, just kind of did a quick Google. Some of the bigger names that come up when you just search soccer players from St. Louis: Tim Ream from St. Louis.
Jamie.
Will Bruin, obviously still with Seattle, I believe. Tom Barlow, who scored a goal. Young Tom Barlow scored a goal against Austin for New York Red Bulls. Right in front of us last year. I believe that was the fourth goal of that match for Red Bulls. Becky Sauerbrunn on the women's side. That's a big name. Taylor Twellman from St. Louis. So
I knew that one.
We're getting a little off topic here, but again, we could keep going through this list just as an example.
The point has been made. The point has been made.
For sure. And maybe just trying to avoid talking about this next piece of business, we're going back to Houston, who, by all accounts, having, from my opinion, we've kind of talked about them having a little too much good business for our liking last episode. Houston did make Tom Bogert's list of top 5 off seasons in MLS. They added Franco Escobar as a 27-year-old right back, can also play right center back in a back three, won MLS Cup with Atlanta in 2018, and then again with LAFC last year, only 82 MLS appearances, so I'm not sure if he's played mostly a backup role or he's been injured or a combination of the two, but still, two-time MLS champion, 27-year-old, joining Houston there as a fullback. So, they send Lundqvist out on the left. They bring Escobar in on the right. And again, we know they signed Brad Smith to be there on the left, which opened up Lundqvist to be moved. Orlando City, who Tom Bogert, I keep referencing this list. He has Orlando City.
Give us the list. I want to hear it. You just keep saying they're on the list.
Number 1 is Orlando City. Number 2 is LAFC. Number 3 is Charlotte. Number 4 is Houston. Number 5, FC Cincinnati. Again, still a lot of moves to be had, I think, between now and the season opening date of February 25th. But again, the Orlando City, number 1 on that list. Big move here. Signed Argentine winger Martin Ojeda from the club Godoy Cruz. He is now Orlando's third DP, so they fill that final third DP slot. 24 years old. Had 13 goals and 14 assists for Godoy Cruz in 45 appearances this year. So obviously a very talented player. Can't go wrong, it seems, signing an Argentine player. Yeah. So another big move for Orlando there. Again, one of their biggest moves of the offseason, stealing our Felipe from us. So I'm sure that played a huge part in them getting the number one spot. Yeah. Victor, here's a bit of good news. Finally, some good news for CF Montreal. Victor Wanyama re-signed on a 2-year DP deal after he had publicly said, "I'm out of here." He returned. So just a little sliver of good news for those Montreal fans who I'm sure are having a terrible offseason. I'd imagine if Bogert did his bottom 5, Montreal would be close to the bottom.
I would say so.
2 more things here. RSL signed Andres Gomez from Millonarios. Around $4 million is the reported transfer fee there, which I believe would be one of, if not the most expensive transfer in RSL history. I may be getting my wires crossed there, but it's a 20-year-old forward, 13 goals in 6 appearances for Millonarios' first team. Again, he's 20, about 4,000 minutes for Gomez there, and would be a U22 initiative signing. So seems like a piece of good business for our buddies in Salt Lake. And the last one, let me make sure I pull up all the relevant information here, because until this morning, it was a rumor. Now seems to be not confirmed yet, but apparently we're in the final stages here.
Okay.
Inter Miami closing in on a deal per Tom Bogert to acquire former MLS MVP Josef Martinez from Atlanta United. Final details to be sorted out. Will be a buyout from Atlanta and Miami, signing him to a non-DP deal. Apparently, Josef Martinez currently, or already, I should say, in Miami. So when he officially leaves, Atlanta will have cleared that DP spot and some pretty significant cap space. With other departures, they waived Dom Dwyer the other day. Alan Franco is gone. Marcelino Moreno is gone. Emerson Hindman is gone. 12 players out, and 13 now with Martinez apparently gone. So bit of a reset there in Atlanta, which by all accounts, mid-season last year, like when we came through Atlanta to play them, it seemed like that's where this was headed. And so now that is confirmed. So MLS MVP on the move. Certainly, if he gets anywhere close to his MVP form there with Miami, just a huge move for them to get him on a non-DP deal. So any other comments from you on that MLS news before we close out the pod with this other bullshit?
No, I'm ready for the bullshit.
Yeah, instead of the bullshit, we'll replace the nonsense this week, and we'll try to keep this as concise as possible just because it has been talked to death over the last 7 days. But discussing the Greg Berhalter, Claudio / Danielle Reyna, Gio Reyna saga, and I guess we could include Rosalind Berhalter in there as well. Try to sum this up as quickly as possible. Obviously, in early December, there was the leak from a leadership conference where Greg Berhalter had made some off-the-record comments that very much became on the record when they leaked. Basically, talking more shit about Gio Reyna and his, reported transgressions. It was also reported that he had apologized, had been forgiven by his teammates and the coaching staff, and they moved forward. Then, I think it was last Monday, Berhalter comes out with a statement, kind of looks like getting ahead of some accusations of domestic violence from like 30 years ago between he and his now wife, who then was his girlfriend. I believe they were both 18 years old. Apparently it was a physical altercation of some sort. He said he kicked her in the legs. Another party, Danielle Reyna, has said that there was more to it than that. Danielle Reyna was the roommate of Rosalind. I don't remember her maiden name, but Rosalind Berhalter. Yeah, so you didn't know that part. Yeah, there's all kinds of...
This is like a fucking soap opera.
Yes, it is pretty ridiculous. So then the day after Berhalter released the statement about he and his wife and those allegations, ESPN reports a story that Claudio Reyna, reports in quotes, Claudio Reyna has been blackmailing or was blackmailing the U.S. Soccer Federation with these allegations against Greg Berhalter in retaliation for his handling of Gio Reyna at the World Cup and then the subsequent comments after the World Cup. About an hour later, less than an hour later, The Athletic releases an article with a very, very important clarifying statement from Danielle Reyna, who the wife of Claudio. Again, Claudio is the sporting director of Austin FC. If anybody who's listening, I'm sure everybody knows that if you're listening this deep into the podcast. But if you didn't know, that is the tie-in with Austin FC here. Claudio Reyna, of course, the sporting director. If you're coming to us from other sports, essentially the general manager of the team. So Danielle Reyna, in the Athletic article where she had her statement included, took responsibility for bringing up the the fight 30 years ago between Greg Berhalter and his then girlfriend, now wife of 25 years. She said that she mentioned it in a private conversation to Ernie Stewart, who's the head of the USSF. They are also friends because Ernie Stewart and Brian McBride, who are kind of the two higher-ups at the USSF, of course, those two guys, both teammates of Claudio Reyna and Greg Berhalter. So again, the soap opera type stuff. And what Danielle Reyna said was that she was making the comparison between mistakes that Greg made as an 18-year-old to mistakes that her son was making, and the fact that she thought that Greg would give her son Gio, again, those two families very, very close, that he would give her a little bit more grace, knowing that at that age you can make some very silly, stupid mistakes that don't necessarily define you as a person and certainly as a player. So then Ernie Stewart, I would imagine, as he probably has to based on being in an organization with that type of notoriety, has to start some sort of investigation, because the statute of limitations on information like that is not up to the employee to decide. And I can tell you, like, at least like from working at various NCAA affiliated institutions, every employee at those type, like in an athletic department, say, if you have some information brought to you about that, you by law have to report those type of things. So again, I don't know if it's a one-to-one between the U.S. Soccer Federation, what have you, but an investigation began into Greg Berhalter, what have you. Now where we stand today is, I guess, a little bit in the balance, a little bit like of a purgatory, so to speak, where a lot of people, I would venture to say hundreds of thousands of people, first impression of this situation is that Claudio Reyna was blackmailing somebody about Greg Berhalter, when ESPN did not retract the statement they made about anonymous sources saying that he did so. But they changed the headline, which was, of course, what gets blasted across social media. They changed the headline an hour after the fact, which is total hack journalism, in my opinion. Again, and I'm not like some dude who's not like, I've got a journalism degree and work in media to some extent. Yeah. And like, you can't do that, especially without publicizing, like, hey, like, this has been changed. Yeah. And it's important. So, like, I think both of us would not suggest that there is no possibility that Claudio had some sort of wrongdoing here. But based on what has been confirmed by both sides, there is nothing here that it suggests that Claudio Reyna did anything but talk to his former teammates and friends about his frustrations with the way Greg, again, former teammate and friend, and I don't know if that friend may be former now as well. There's just the fact that this, and it really got both of us heated that moment. Because the initial reaction, of course, to that report is, well, Claudio's going to lose his job. But when you actually read the fucking article, and then, of course, they change it later, there's not, like, he has not done anything wrong outside, like, of course, like, maybe he's being a helicopter parent, maybe he's but that has nothing to do with his job and having one with Austin FC. So I guess I'll turn it over to you, as I've been talking the majority of this 70 minutes. What were your thoughts on this situation? And then what are your thoughts on it going forward? Like, is this something we have to worry about?
No. And I mean, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the headline flat out said blackmailed.
Yes. Yep.
On ESPN.
Claudio Reyna blackmailed.
Front page, Claudio Reyna blackmailed. The first line in the fucking article says Danielle Reyna brought it up.
Yep.
And it's just absolutely ridiculous that type of like clickbait article can make it to the front of ESPN, and then it can spread like wildfire, get our community completely just riled up beyond belief. Falling for this man's head. And again, all you had to do was dig a little bit into this story.
Just read a little bit.
Just a little bit into this story, and you would have been informed on it. And I mean, to suggest that he was blackmailing, like, Berhalter's out of contract right now. Like, what is, I don't understand. Obviously, we can say, you know, whatever we want about how they handled this. I don't think it's a great comparison to be like, hey, you kicked your wife 30 years ago. My son, you know, can make mistakes too.
Right.
And also the whole Gio thing right now is also kind of strange. I know he had some sort of attitude, but it seems way worse than they're letting on regarding, you know, how
from
bad
the Reyna side
it was. How bad it was with especially his teammates as well. Because it was like a 50-50 split initially, right? Where like guys wanted him gone.
Well, so like, but I don't honestly. I think that reporting came from ESPN, and like, I don't know how I'm supposed to trust the ESPN soccer reporting at this point
Just
because
ridiculous.
they're clearly just like, and I think it was Kevin Morris who kind of pointed this out on the day the news dropped, was like, it's pretty clear that ESPN rushed the shit out of the story and tried to
Mhm.
sensationalize it even more to beat The Athletic, who was about to drop their version of the story, which
Absolutely.
again was way more comprehensive, even just including the Danielle Reyna statement.
I mean, I don't foresee anything coming of this in regard to Claudio's job in Austin. Maybe it has implications for Gio going forward. Maybe it is enough bad press swirling around Berhalter that he doesn't get that contract. But I mean, I was just more so frustrated with how people reacted without actually understanding what was going on.
Right.
And to just make some false equivalencies across the board regarding Claudio, regarding Berhalter. And it was just like, man, we can't read everything that gets thrown out there on the internet. But if it's something that you're going to be confident enough to really take a hard position on, and I mean, I saw a lot of comments that were just like, well, he's coming for Berhalter's job, so I want his job, so I want Claudio's job. And it's like, bro, what are you're doing the exact same thing, but without any sort of context other than, or skin in the game other than you root for Austin FC.
Right.
So just a really bullshit situation.
Yeah.
A great way to say it. And then for ESPN to change the title and have it up there still without some sort of apology, like just absolutely shitty, poor.
Yep.
Just a poorly handled situation all around. I want to move on from it because we were fired up that day. I was having a hard time working.
Yeah, same. So, I mean, I will also say this. More information could certainly come out that paints Claudio in a worse light.
Absolutely.
With facts. Like, again, produce the evidence of his blackmail. If he did it, it's on the record. Like, it is either a phone call or a text.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, so it is interesting, though. On the Lundqvist press release today, not a quote from Claudio Reyna, a quote from Director of Player Personnel, Sean Rubio. So no Claudio in sight today. So again, like, we'll see. Like, it's still kind of a developing situation here. But I think we just wanted to touch on, again, that first impression, because first impressions stick like a motherfucker.
Absolutely.
And
they did serious damage.
And like, and I know you agree with me on this too. I thought there were a couple like MLS pundits that we trust who jumped on the side of like, this is absolutely reprehensible from the Reynas and blah, blah, blah. And like,
couldn't wait.
Yeah, just like everybody wants to be first.
And I get it. We almost did the Giassi Zardes DP.
I tweeted that shit out there, bro.
Hey, let me redo that sentence. We did not almost do a Giassi Zardes DP.
I mean,
yeah, dude, we definitely got into it with some people in the internet sphere. And I get it. Like, that's the world that we live in nowadays, especially when it comes to this 24/7 news cycle. Mm-hmm. If you're not first, you're last, I suppose. And to your point, if more information comes out and it's credible, and we can look at it, then yes, we can change our opinion on this.
Yeah.
But for now, miss me with all this Claudio's got to go shit.
Yeah.
Please. We can't entertain it.
100%.
And maybe today is, him not being on record today is just letting it cool down a little bit. Not take away from the moment of the trade where people are going to ask Claudio about that whole situation, which 100% would have happened.
Absolutely.
So I think that really isn't something to look too in deep, with too much depth. But yeah, as it progresses, obviously we can talk about it more. I don't know if anything else is going to come out of this, but just an absolutely terrible job by ESPN and several people who are trusted, viable MLS sources who did an equally as poor job as ESPN did.
Yeah. We all want the information as soon as we can get it. But, like, to me, and I think you're on board with me here, I would rather have accuracy than speed.
For sure.
All of my reporting. And that's in any sport. And for any topic. It doesn't even have to be in sports. Right? Like,
you want the right information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably enough on this topic. If anything else comes of it, we will, of course, address it. But just wanted to get some of those thoughts off our chest to close the pod here. And if anybody's still with us, we appreciate you still being here about 80 minutes in to episode 25, our 2021 Driussi episode. We'll be back next week. And, the nonsense will be back, hopefully, less bullshit. And I'm sure we will have more Austin FC news, of course, more MLS news to discuss. And I think both of us very excited for some of the nonsense that we have planned between now and opening day. It should be a really fun 6 weeks to come. But we'll go ahead and get out of here. If you've got 5 seconds to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast, wherever you get your podcast. And shout out to Brian and Mike, who let us know that now we have, I don't know how it works, but apparently Google Podcasts has now picked up the podcast. So, you don't have to subscribe to Apple. You don't have to subscribe to Spotify. I believe you can find it there on Google Podcasts as well. If you're listening on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, the thumbs up button on this video, all that good stuff. You can hit the notification bell to know when a new podcast goes live or a live stream goes live, because we do fire up the live stream from time to time. And with that, that'll do it here on episode 25. We're a quarter of the way, to episode 100. Who would have thought?
Close to the season, baby. I am. Every time we talk a little more, I get a little, just a little shiver up the spine, ready to go. Looking forward to it.
All right, everybody. Once again, appreciate you tuning in. We will talk to you all next time. Until then, vamos Austin FC. Goodbye.
3, 2,